Yo guys, how are we getting on? Ben about here and welcome back to the first episode in what feels like ages, and I can only apologize for the break in videos. First things first, I have been moving house. As you can see, I am in a new office, no plant and no photo behind me at the moment, but I will be setting those up at some point. But also I got hit directly in the eyeball at pace while I was playing paddle the other day, so I couldn't see for about a week and it was a pretty miserable time. Not sure if we're allowed to put a photo up of what it looked like, but you never know, we'll see what Ricky decides to do. So on to today's video, we are going to be taking a look at my March results firstly, and then obviously we're going to be looking at some pretty spicy hands. So as you can see in the graph, it was a pretty damn swingy one. We started off down 15k immediately, back to evens, back down 15k, back to evens, and then down 30k before making a huge comeback in the last week to lose just over $3,000 on the month and then losing a little bit more in EV. Feels great to kind of have that result, especially after winning 35k or was it 45k with rate back the month before, and then feeling like we're just going to get turbo binned and then kind of make a very, very strong comeback. That also doesn't account for rate back. We did make $10,873 in rake back, and we played just under 40,000 hands, which I think is pretty good volume for 1KNL and 2KNL, and I'm very, very pleased with that. So on to today's hands. In hand one, we are over on coin poker, we have made quads, we have big raised the river, and we have been jammed on. In hand two, truth be told, we make a pretty big mistake, although a mistake that I wasn't aware of at the time. I wonder whether or not you guys can spot that. In hand three, we've just got a huge recreational handing us a stack at 2k. And last up, we experience what can only be described as pure bullshit of a hand history. And first up today, we have got pocket fours over on coin poker, and we're playing 1KNL. For those of you who don't know, this is an anti-table, so we're going to be cold calling, or should I just say V-pipping, a decent amount more, and pocket fours does seem to fit that bill. Now the button is a kind of a bit of a tighter reg, and the big blind is a more aggressive reg. You might argue that then we should just fold pocket fours, but I just do think that this is going to still make money, so I do call. We see a very displeasing ace queen nine rainbow, and we are just going to be looking to check fold. It does check all the way through, and we do turn a pretty disguised bottom set. I think we're just going to be playing checks here. I just want to be playing pretty big bets here in the small blind, and actually pocket fours does fit that bill very, very well. But I think it's much, much more conceivable that on a board like this, we're just going to be playing a range check because we just don't have any of the good hands. We don't have pocket nines, we don't have ace queen. We do have some ace four, but obviously we block some calls with that. We river the fourth four, and I decide to check again. The reason I decide to check again is for a number of reasons. The big blind is definitely going to be kind of playing pretty passively with a bunch of their top pairs here, as well as the in-position player. I now don't expect any of these players to not be betting an ace on the river or betting a bluff. And also when we just overbet the river, which is probably the sizing we're going to use, we could use block as well. We just very, very, very rarely get raised in this node on this board. So I think checking and check raising is just going to be the kind of the best way to funnel in as much money as possible. And not only that, it doesn't look that credible. We only really rep like one combo of ace four of diamonds and one combo of pocket fours because we don't really have any of the other combos. And when we have such a narrow range, and we do assume that people may well bet call a little bit wider than kind of like raise and then call another raise, I just decide to go ahead and check it. We do see a pretty quick bet of about 2/3 pot, and now I'm going to make a very, very chunky raise. I make it somewhere in the region of like 250% pot. Now this is when it gets a little bit interesting because big blind doesn't think about it for that long before shoving it in for another $500. Apparently I'm slow rolling. I don't know why this is happening. Okay. The big blind on this occasion has decided to bluff the old ace 10 offsuit. And I guess they just think I rep very, very narrow and they have gone for it, but it has gone extraordinarily well for us. So next up, we are over on GG playing 2KNL, and we get an open from a good reg in under the gun, and we defend 9-6 of spades in the big blind, all standard stuff so far. Now, disclaimer, there is a mistake or mistakes in this hand, and I would like you to let me know where those mistakes are, because I definitely learned something in this hand, and at the end of the hand, I will tell you what I learned. So we do face 40% on the flop, which is definitely notable. We're going to be raising a little bit less versus 40% than if it was 1/3 pot, but I do go ahead and raise this one regardless. Feeling things about it for a very little while and ends up calling, and we see an 8 on the turn. Now, because this is big blind versus under the gun, we don't get to bet many merged hands, and what I'm talking about when I say that is like the top end maybe of our flop check raise range, maybe a hand like like pocket tens or something like that, because it just becomes a bit too thin. That hand probably is worth like 1/3 pot, maybe half pot at a push, but I naturally want to build around the bulk of my value, which is probably going to be combos like 5x, full houses, and also now straights. So with that in mind, I think going over bet or pot is okay. On this particular occasion, I decided to go pot. Now remember, there are some mistakes in this hand, so keep an eye whether or not you think I've made a mistake just yet with my justifications. And we do see a 3 of spades on the river. I'm just going to follow through this combo always for the simple fact that I block 6-5 suited, which is obviously a combo that in position is probably going to pure call or mixed call at least, probably just pure call. And also now some of our bluffs get there, combos like ace, deuce as well. So I do, after a little bit of a tank, shove for about 1.5x pot. And now this is when villain goes deep, 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 deep into the tank before finally folding. So let's just talk quickly about the mistakes that I made, or just basically a single mistake. The river was fine, the flop was fine, but it actually was my turn barrel with this exact combo. We just do a really, really horrible job of blocking the 5x region from in position. So a hand like king 6 of spades makes an infinitely better turn barrel, and then this combo makes a very, very, very mandatory check, apparently according to the sim, although the EV was pretty similar. However, if we're playing versus the button, then my line does become much, much, much better, because we do block a bit more of the 5x region, whilst also allowing in position just have a much wider range as it is late position. Let me know if you would have played it the same, or let me know if you would have made the same mistake that I did. Next up, we are again at 2k on GG, and we get an open from the cutoff from a dark green tag. Now, for those of you who are new to these videos, a dark green tag for me is a recreational on probation. That basically means I haven't determined what kind of recreational they are yet, but my assumption is that they are not a rec. What I do know is I am going to be 3-betting ace king offsuit every single time anyway, so I go ahead and just do that. We see king 4 deuce rainbow, and now we have a bit of a decision point. Do we want to go like really small? Do we want to go half pot? Do we want to go really, really big? But what I recommend for all of you to do is, new players, you want to be making notes on them. So here you can see the note is got the potential to fly off the handle. So clearly I played them on another table and they had done some absolute spicing around. When I see this note, I am always, always, always going to go with the small bet size. And the reason I'm going to go with the small bet size is that there's just much, much higher chance that recreational is going to spaz out and do some raising. On this occasion, they don't do that, they do just call, and we see a pretty nice 4 of diamonds on the turn. I'm definitely just going to continue barreling now. I'm not going to be too concerned with the fact that, yeah, they can fly off the handle and go small again here. For the times that they are just going to kind of station us down with some pocket pairs, I think going with the at least rather large sizing is going to be the right approach. I actually sized down a little bit from 70% pot and went like about 60, but whatever. I think I'm just giving as much rope as I can. We see a pretty dicey 9 of diamonds on the river. We are shoving about 2/3 pot, and we do have top pair. We also do know that this recreational has the habit to fly off the handle over a very small sample. We do fade the snap, which is really good news in this situation, but we do get a very long tank before they decide to look me directly in the eyes and decide that I am full of it. Ace 10 of spades. Yeah, nothing more to say about this. And in the last hand today, we have got pocket jacks on the button. We get an open from a recreational on probation who needs to be downgraded to a passive recreational, and we get cold called out the small blind. Now, the small blind, the tag on this player is actually a brown tag, which is a passive recreational or a tight recreational or a straightforward recreational. However, for some reason on this day, this player was playing a lot of regs heads up, and I'm not sure why. They don't usually do that. Maybe they've been on the beers, I'm not sure. And generally was just playing like fairly outlandish, I would say, a little bit more bluffy than normal, and also just like a bit more stationary than normal. They have cold called a 3-bet here, but passive recreationals do that kind of thing all the time. We do see a very good 9-7 deuce with a flush draw, and I start out with a c-bet and I go half pot. Now, curiously, we do get a bit of a tank and then a very small raise from the small blind. Now, what do you think small blind's range looks like here? Do you think they cold call queens through aces? I would say it's pretty unlikely. Do we think that pocket tens, small raises flop? Seems kind of weird too. Do we think it's just pocket nines and pocket sevens? I think that is actually like fairly reasonable, fairly likely, fairly often gonna happen. But then also we do need to factor in that this player was just splashing around a bit this day. So I think ultimately what I should have done here, and I did make a mistake and only call the flop, I think I should have just run it and just shoved the flop. And I'm really trying to not be results oriented when I say that. The reason I did end up calling simply was my tag on this player is passive recreational. When you face a cold call and then a check raise on this board, although admittedly the sizing doesn't really scream of strength, you've got to be a little bit cautious. However, I just think my hand is forced here. If I had 10s, I could maybe just fold. Pocket jacks is so marginal, but I think you just close your eyes and shove it in. Either way, we live and die by our mistakes, and I end up just calling. And we do turn a little bit of equity on the 3 of diamonds. Admittedly, now we do lose to a load of flushes that could have check raised the flop. However, I heavily discount those flushes when they pretty quickly jam the turn. I just don't ever see a nut flush or a king high flush shoving the turn here, ever. I definitely do see pocket 9s and pocket 7s shoving though, which is obviously a big problem for us. Although we do have a flush draw, even though, yeah, we're definitely not getting the right price versus a set. However, the thing that kind of lent me towards calling simply was just the history on this day of this player splashing around a little bit more and flop small raise, just not screaming of epic strength to me. Thought this could just be a massive spew of like, I don't know, like an ace queen with a diamond, a king queen with a diamond, an ace king with a diamond, maybe even like an ace 5 of clubs or something like that. Obviously, I know that that contradicts the fact that I called the flop, but I don't think I should have called the flop. So ultimately, I do decide to just cycle off. I thought there was a small chance as well that they could have pocket 10s with a diamond, which obviously were absolutely dominating here and actually nit rolling at this point. However, once we do call it off, we do get shown the bad news in the pocket 3s with a turn set, which is truly unfortunate, and let's be honest, pure bullshit to get the 3 of diamonds on the turn here. We do run it twice, but the poker gods are not going to favor us on this occasion, and we do lose this stack. That's going to do it for the hands and today's video. Really hope you enjoyed it, and please do go ahead and drop me a sub if you haven't already. But until next time, take care, and I will see you at the tables.